Hello and welcome to the Nordic News Report for Friday, February 13th, 2026.
Good to be here.
Our mission today, as always, is pretty straightforward. We're here to deliver the latest factual updates from across the North Atlantic.
And that means, without perspective or speculation, we're just looking at what the reports are saying this week.
We've got a lot to get through. We'll start with the news headlines and then move into a summary of the opinion pages.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get into the news. First up at geopolitics. UK forces join Arctic Sentry and double presence in Norway.
And tied to that, Danish and Greenlandic leaders to meet U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Munich.
From Greenland, we're looking at Disco Line's hybrid ferry Nýtt pulled from service.
And also a crisis at Polar Seafood, where a quota shortage is threatening about 115 jobs.
Then in the Faroe Islands, a major headline. Court hands down 12-year sentences for synthetic drug smuggling.
And on infrastructure, safety violations cited in the Sullom Tunnel project.
And finally, from Iceland and Shetland.
We have Icelandic university students protest tuition hikes, a new obesity action plan, and news that Shetland's Sullom Voe Terminal faces an economic crossroads.
Okay, so that's the news. And for the opinion segment,
We'll be looking at three things: the ongoing debate on Faroese sovereignty versus a so-called new union,
right,
a piece on labor mismatches and how they're driving immigration,
and the last one.
and a very pointed exchange in the press, the Jimenez scale controversy.
Okay, let's get into the details. We'll start with geopolitics and defense.
Right.
There's some significant movement with NATO activities, specifically around this Arctic Sentry project. What is that?
So the Ukraine's Ministry of Defense has announced they're officially joining the Arctic Sentry outpost in Greenland.
And this follows a similar initiative.
Exactly. It comes after the creation of Baltic Sentry last year. That was set up directly in response to the sabotage of those undersea cables.
So the implication is a similar surveillance priority, just moving north.
That seems to be the context, yes. It suggests a focus on protecting critical infrastructure in the Arctic as well.
The report also mentions more boots on the ground in Norway.
Yes, a significant increase. The UK is doubling its troop numbers there.
From what to what?
From the current 1,000 personnel up to 2,000 over the next 3 years.
Is there any immediate activity?
There is. Reports confirm 2 exercises are underway right now: Arctic Light and Operation Arctic Endurance.
And that involves?
About 1,500 British soldiers currently doing winter warfare training.
Okay, let's shift from military to diplomatic news. A big meeting is happening today in Munich.
That's right, at the Munich Security Conference. It's a trilateral meeting.
Who's involved?
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, Greenlandic Premier Jens Frederik Nielsen, and they're meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
And the topic is clearly stated.
Yes. The stated agenda is Greenland and Arctic security.
The Norwegian Prime Minister is also there.
He is Jonas Gahr Støre. He's also meeting with Secretary Rubio, but separately. The reporting indicates his focus is primarily on the war in Ukraine.
Now, the source material gives a bit of background, a certain atmosphere to these meetings.
It does. It points to underlying tensions about potential trade policies from the U.S.
Specifically?
It mentions the Vance-Trump administration and concerns about, trade actions against countries that are helping the Danish kingdom in the Arctic.
And there's a quote from the Danish PM.
Yes, Prime Minister Frederiksen is quoted describing this as a Greenland moment, one that's serving as a wake-up call for Europe.
Let's move on to Greenlandic domestic news, a major story here about a new maritime investment.
This concerns the vessel Nýtt. It's Disco Line's new hybrid ferry.
Hybrid as in electric diesel.
Correct. Built for 93 million Danish kroner. But the big news is it's already been taken out of service.
Why would they ground a brand new vessel?
It's a surprisingly basic problem: physical compatibility.
What does that mean?
The ship is just too large for the harbor facilities in Ilulissat where it was supposed to operate.
You're saying it can't dock safely?
It cannot operate safely within the existing port. It was meant for the route to Kekertarsuaq, but it's a no-go.
Has the company commented?
Yes. The director, Michael Sloth Hudgard, admitted the company should have made sure the harbor could handle the ship's design.
So what happens to this 93 million kroner ship now?
That's the problem. Its future is uncertain. Sale or lease are options, but since it's a very specific Arctic design, the market for it is, pretty limited.
Okay. Also in Greenland, an industrial crisis in Asia?
Yes, this is at the Polar Seafood Company. Their factory, the Polar Rejat, is at risk of closure.
And that would affect a lot of people.
It would. It threatens 115 jobs in the community. The issue is a lack of raw materials, specifically shrimp.
So they just need more quota.
The director, Bent Selling, has requested another 4,000 tons of shrimp quota, but there's a legal complication. The current fishery laws, they prevent the transfer of quota from seagoing fisheries to the coastal fisheries.
So the quota might exist somewhere in the system, but it can't be moved to this factory that needs it.
Exactly right. The legal framework prohibits that specific transfer.
And there's been a political reaction.
Members of the IA party in the local municipality, Commune Kekertalik, are demanding extraordinary meetings to try and solve this.
Staying in Greenland, let's talk about education. Our proposed reform is generating debate.
It is. The Nálakkersuisut, the government, has proposed a pretty significant change to the primary school curriculum.
What's the proposal?
To remove Danish language instruction entirely for the first few years.
For which grades?
For grades 0 through 3, the focus would be exclusively on Greenlandic, with English and Danish only being introduced in grade 4.
And what's their reasoning for that?
The government is citing international research. The idea is that building very strong skills in your mother tongue first helps you learn foreign languages more effectively later on.
And who's pushing back against this?
The main opposition seems to be from the business sector. Christian Keldsen from the Greenland Business Association has warned against it.
His argument being?
That it creates a bottleneck for students down the line. Higher education, like the gymnasiums and the university, they still require proficiency in Danish.
Is there any data in the report on current education levels?
Yes, it notes that over 50% of the population's highest level of education is primary school. So the concern is this change could make it even harder to transition to higher education.
All right, let's cross over to the Faroe Islands. A story here about a very significant legal ruling.
A very significant one. The Faroese court sentenced 2 men to 12 years in prison.
For smuggling what, exactly?
A substance called pinaka.
And what is that, for those of us who haven't heard of it?
It's a synthetic cannabinoid, but it acts like an opioid. It's a liquid, usually smoked in e-cigarettes.
And it's dangerous.
Extremely. The court documents say it's hundreds of times stronger than THC. It carries a very high risk of inducing a coma or even death.
Was the quantity seized large?
It was 7.2 liters of the liquid. The authorities estimate that's enough for about 220,000 individual doses.
So the sentence reflects the scale of the operation.
It reflects the scale and the potency of the drug, yes.
Now on to infrastructure in the Faroes. There's some controversy around the planned Sullom Voe Tunnel.
That's right. This is the massive 23-kilometer tunnel project to connect the island of Sullom Voe.
And a politician has raised safety concerns.
Yes. MP Lil John Wehe. She's lodged a formal critique of the design standards.
What's the specific issue she's pointing to?
The lack of an escape route. For a tunnel that long, 23 kilometers, the current plan doesn't include a parallel emergency tube.
And that violates standards.
According to Wehe, it violates both Norwegian and EU minimum safety standards for tunnels of that length.
What's the response from the road authority?
Landsverk, the authority, has said they're questioning the safety assessments that were provided by the private developer.
So a conflict between the developer and the government authority?
It seems to be yes. A classic case of design costs versus regulatory safety requirements.
Okay, a few quick business updates from the Faroes.
3 main items. First, in shipping, Smyrline has launched a new cargo ship, the Ukraines.
When will it be in service?
It's the first of 2 new ships, and it's expected to enter service in 2026.
Second item.
A legal case. The former CEO of a bank, Janus Peterson, has been charged with tax fraud.
What are the details?
It's an alleged 2 million DKK in VAT evasion related to apartment construction in Tórshavn through his companies.
And the third item is on innovation.
Yes, from the Hugskoti Innovation Center. They're celebrating the successful exit of a startup called Farpay.
A local success story.
Exactly. And they're also preparing for the Tonic 2026 conference in May, which is all about connecting local startups with international investors through the North Atlantic Business Angel Network.
Now to Iceland and Shetland. Starting in Iceland, news from the university.
Yes, student protests are ongoing at the University of Iceland.
Over what?
The University Council has approved raising the annual registration fee from 75,000 Icelandic kroner to 100,000.
And the students' argument.
The Ruska student movement says that this is basically a tuition fee in disguise. They argue it undermines Iceland's policy of free public university education.
In public health news, the government is tackling obesity.
They are. Health Minister Alma Muller has presented a new 5-year action plan.
What are the numbers?
The data shows 22% of adults and 7% of children in Iceland are classified as obese.
And how does that compare?
The report notes it's currently the highest rate in the Nordic region, so the stated goal is to bring those numbers down so Iceland no longer holds that distinction.
There's also a related debate about alcohol sales.
Yes, this is the ongoing debate about the state monopoly versus private sales.
The classic argument.
A private retailer, Sentry, is arguing that more access doesn't increase consumption. But public health officials are firing back, citing data from Canada and the US that suggests the opposite is true.
An environmental update now, from a famous tourist spot.
From Reynisfjara Beach, the famous black sand beach, there are reports of severe erosion.
What's happening?
Those iconic basalt columns that used to stand on the sand are now, in some places, surrounded by seawater at high tide. The report blames recent storms and persistent easterly winds for reshaping the coastline.
And now to Shetland, with a report on the Sullom Voe Terminal.
Right. A new study is out from the University of Strathclyde looking at the terminal's future. And it contains a stark warning.
Which is?
That the facility risks becoming a Grangemouth disaster if no action is taken.
A reference to the industrial closure in Scotland.
Exactly. The study projects over 400 job losses by 2050 in the worst-case scenario.
Does the report suggest a solution?
It does. It calls for an urgent transition to low-carbon fuel production, specifically e-fuels, and by 2030.
And the economic impact of doing nothing.
The analysis suggests inaction could cost the local Shetland economy about £30 million annually.
Okay, that covers the news. We'll move now to our final segment, the Opinion Roundup.
And just to remind you, these are summaries of editorials and letters from the regional press. We're reporting on the opinions, not endorsing them.
A very important distinction. We start in the Faroes with a very heated exchange.
Yes, involving MP Sjur Skal and a commentator named Mark Jimenez.
It started with an apology, I believe.
It did, which is unusual. Jimenez published a letter apologizing for previous name-calling and for speculating, without evidence, that Skal had ties to foreign powers.
But that wasn't the end of it.
Not at all. The letter immediately pivoted into a fresh attack.
What is the new accusation?
Jimenez calls Skal a useful idiot for what he terms the Western elite, or the Epstein class.
Strong language.
Very. He accuses the MP of promoting hatred against Muslims and immigrants. The letter uses rhetoric like Western Satanism and refers to white supremacist tech oligarchs, specifically naming Elon Musk.
Now, that phrase Western Satanism has appeared elsewhere recently.
It has, and the source material makes a direct note of this. It points out that the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, recently used the Epstein files to label Western elites as satanic.
So the observation is that the language is mirroring rhetoric from the Kremlin.
The report notes the striking similarity in the rhetoric, yes.
Okay. Next in the opinion pages, the debate over Faroe sovereignty.
This piece is from Helgi Abrahamsson of the Unionist Party. He's floating an idea he calls a new union.
And what would that entail?
In his proposal, the Faroes would take control of their own foreign policy, trade, and defense things currently handled by Denmark, but they would remain within the kingdom.
And it would formalize an exit path.
Exactly. It would include a formalized right to leave the kingdom should they choose to in the future.
And is there any polling data to give this context?
There is. A new poll shows that only 20% of Faroes voters actually support full independence right now.
And the rest?
42% want more self-governance, but within the kingdom, which is sort of what this proposal speaks to, and 34% want to keep things as they are.
Our final opinion piece is about labor and immigration, also in the Faroes.
Yes. This is an op-ed from sociologist Samuel Matras Christensen. He's trying to explain the high rates of immigration to the islands.
And his argument.
He says it's driven by a structural mismatch in the labor market.
A mismatch how?
His analysis is that local Faroes workers are increasingly avoiding the low-paying jobs, especially in tourism and the service industry. That creates a vacuum that has to be filled by imported labor.
Does he propose a solution?
He argues against simply boosting mass tourism, saying it just makes the problem worse and puts pressure on housing and the Faroese language.
So what's the alternative?
He suggests the industry should pivot to focus on high-end, exclusive tourism. The idea is that this would reduce the need for a large volume of low-wage workers.
That concludes our summary of the news and opinion reports for this week. Thank you for joining the Nordic News Report.
And remember, sources for all the stories we've talked about today are available in the show notes.
Like and subscribe to PalsFundamentals for more content like this. Sources linked below.